Can Bitcoin actually replace the dollar, the euro, or the yen? And if not, does that mean it's a bad investment? Let's break this down. So I'm sure you all know the benefits of Bitcoin. It has a predictable supply and has a fixed cap of 21 million coins. It's decentralized. No single government controls it. It can move money globally without needing banks and is an inflation hedge as fiat money can be debased. In high inflation countries like Argentina, Venezuela, Turkey, it's a lifeline to escape local currency collapse. Now let's talk about the reality. Bitcoin is highly volatile. Imagine getting paid in bitcoins by your employer, and you saved 50K worth of bitcoins to buy a house. But now the value of that bitcoin is only $25,000. Now I know that volatility can stabilize in the future, and I don't doubt that as technology improves. So let's go to the other problem, which is its deflationary nature, which is the same reason it grew so much in popularity for, right? Imagine if you had dollars sitting in your checking account and it's just growing in value. You could spend $1,000 and get a PS5. But what if 6 months later, you can now buy two PS5s plus a God of War game for $500? Would you start hoarding? Same goes for Bitcoin. As supply decreases, the value of each Bitcoin grows without you even having to invest that Bitcoin. This brings to our other problem of the hoarders. Have you ever played Monopoly? Have you gotten bankrupt because your friend owns more than half the properties on the board and keeps on asking you for rent? If you have, you can relate to this. If all the big hoarders, like institutions, hoard Bitcoin and own the majority of the supply, they can increase the cost of borrowing according to their will. The very same purpose of Bitcoin not being controlled by a single entity now enters oligarchy. So now the obvious solution would be to increase the velocity of money. This would increase inflation and therefore balancing the deflationary effect. Velocity is how fast money is changing hands in the economy. Let me explain in detail. Inflation is actually your friend in driving productivity. That is why central banks aim to have a mild inflation, so as to negate the effects of people hoarding their money. They aim to increase the velocity of money so it can be put to productive uses. Imagine if everyone never invested their money and just kept hoarding piles of cash. Would anyone be motivated enough to work? Would you work for your employer if your salary kept on decreasing? No, we can argue if we can do the fractional reserve banking system, which is when we deposit $100 at a bank, it keeps $10 and lends the rest. Or we can incentivize circulation using BTC-backed notes, like how the banks issued notes backed by gold. This will definitely increase velocity. But what could go wrong? Greed. Just like how the financial crisis of 2008 was caused by greed being one of the reasons. P's DeFis could over-leverage, and when suddenly a lot of people need their BTC, it could just collapse, and there would be no one to save, like the central bank, as there is no centralization. The very problem that caused Bitcoin's birth, the 2008 crisis, becomes its end. You might have studied this equation in school. MV equals PQ. We take the rate of change of this equation, we get money growth plus velocity growth equals inflation rate plus real GDP growth. But remember, velocity is the most unstable component in the equation. So even if velocity is growing at a faster rate than the real GDP growth rate, which creates inflation, assuming money supply does not grow, there could be times when during a recession, they might not lend easily. Velocity is influenced by human behavior, which has greed imbibed in it. Now, some might argue we can use stablecoins. Well, yes, you can, but what is stablecoin backed by? Fiat itself. It's like saying you want to quit smoking, but just start vaping. I haven't even included problems like regulatory challenges, usage in criminal activity, security concerns, and scalability challenges, because I'm sure those problems can have a solution and is not an inherent challenge by design. So, it brings to the question of the hour. Is Bitcoin worthless? To answer that question, answer me this. Is gold worthless? Apart from showing off, what have you used gold for? And for that matter, even diamonds for? I know there are some industrial uses, but I'm talking about you, individually. Same way, BTC is still an asset, but instead of being physical, it's a digital asset. And as digitalization grows, this becomes more and more valuable, not as a currency, but as digital gold. In countries with high inflation, capital controls, or unstable banking systems, BTC can be a lifeline. It can also serve the hedging purpose in a portfolio, thus making it a good diversification option. ETFs in the US, regulated custody, and sovereign adoption like El Salvador are giving BTC a reserve asset profile, just like how gold reserves are kept by the central banks. If large institutions treat BTC like gold, portfolio allocations can drive multi-trillion demand. So if you're thinking me as someone who is against the crypto gang, I'm not. I just don't see Bitcoin as a currency, but I do see its potential to become an asset class, just like how I don't see us going back to gold as currency, but as an asset class. Doesn't mean I'm anti-gold. In fact, I have a whole new series on crypto investing for beginners that I'm planning to release. I want people to understand what they're investing in and what drives the valuation of these assets, rather than blindly betting on something. So if you liked the video, please do subscribe, and I am open to feedbacks and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, fam!